11, this is Mrs. Jenkins. This is just a video about Component 3. You will be starting Component 3 this week, so the week starting the 13th of January. And your deadline will be around the 8th of May. The deadline for me to enter your Component 3, to upload everything, will be the 15th of May. Obviously this is based on last year's dates. But the new brief will be released tomorrow, so the 13th of January, and I'll give it to you as soon as I can. As you know already, we've spoken about this quite a bit, but this is your final component that you will do in music, and it is completely externally assessed, so I will help you as much as I can, but everything will get sent off to an examiner for them to mark. So as you can see here, it will be 40% of your final grade. So you've all done really, really well with Component 1 and Component 2, and you've got 60% complete of that already. This component goes over 23 hours, and two parts of the Component 3 are in exam conditions, so your Activity 1 and your evaluation at the end. That's under exam conditions. But you get plenty of practical time. You get 16 hours of practical time in the middle to complete your product. I just want to talk you through what you're going to be doing for each section of the component. So the prep work for Activity 1 is 4 hours. As soon as I give you your brief, you will then have 4 hours to get everything that you need to get ready to be able to complete the whole component. So you can get all of your files downloaded, like all of your music files, music stems, music scores. You can do research about the particular style of music that you need to look at. You can look through all the different songs that you've got, but you've basically got 4 hours to prepare everything that you think you may need to complete the component and to complete your music product. As you go through your prep work, you'll need to write notes up to one side of A4. It can either be handwritten or word processed, so on Word or PowerPoint or whatever you need to do, in bullet point form. It can't contain any full sentences or continuous prose, but you can have all your questions that you think you might need to answer for your Activity 1 all set out on your notes, but in bullet point form. And as I said before, when we go into Activity 1, which is I'll talk about in a second, you can just literally just write that out in continuous prose then. So I will be supervising you for the 4 hour prep and trying to give you as much help as I possibly can, but I am limited with the help that I can give you. During the 4 hours here, you'll have access to the internet and everything that you need to be able to complete your Activity 1. So that's the first thing that you need to do. Activity 1 is then your initial response to the music brief. So basically, you will have 2 hours to write up about everything that you've done during your 4 hour prep time. I will give you a template that the exam board give me that you will complete, and it's got some bullet points on the template of questions that you need to answer through this response. So you'll have 2 hours to do this in exam conditions. But it's not an exam, it's just you've got to be quiet, you've not got access to the internet, I've got to have your phones, things like that. You'll then save your this response as a PDF, and it will be given to me, and I will store it and send it off to the exam board when we need to. So this is your grading criteria for that initial response. So it's out of 8 marks. And as you can see here, you've got difference between 1 and 8 marks. So between 1 and 2, it's limited. So limited consideration or limited planning. 3 to 4 marks is adequate or basic or some consideration and some use of basic resources. Marks 5 to 6 is competent or informed or consideration. So your planning is more, well, it's more competent, I suppose, and you can you've addressed the requirements of the brief within your plan, and you've answered all the questions appropriately. And then mark 7 to 8 is all about your detail and how you have thoroughly explained what you are going to do. On the next slide, here is an example. Like, this is the high mark example that the exam board have got on their website for activity 1. This is just a part of it, so I had to put it on several slides. But I have sent you this. You have got this in your component 3 folders already. Okay, so they've talked about how they're going to meet the requirements of the context that they give you on the brief, so about new beginnings and about the Launchpad magazine. This is based on last year's. They've talked about the song that they've chosen, so We've Only Just Begun by the Carpenters, and you can see here that they've talked about how they're going to turn it into the swing genre. And then they've talked about swing and jazz and what makes swing music. And then they've talked about the resources, so what they need to be able to do this. And they've found some key requirements for the song, so they've detailed everything that they found in their research time, in their prep time, in that first 4 hours. And then they've come up with a weekly plan here as well. Like I said already, this is all in your folder, so you can go back and read this properly through. Okay, so, and then activity 2 is all about you creating your music product. So you'll have 16 hours of informal supervision. So I'll be there to just help with some technical things. I won't be able to help you with your pieces necessarily, but I'll be there to help you with any issues that you may have. We'll do this obviously over lesson time we've got about 24 hours left. So we might have to squeeze in an extra bit of time somewhere else as well. But we'll make sure that you get all of your hours in. This is an example, the high mark example, of what they achieved last year. I won't play you the whole 4 minutes of that because, again, it's in your folder which you can access. But that is an example of how a previous student from last year has turned one of those songs that they give you into the swing style, which is one of the styles of music that the exam board asks you to change the song into. So you can hear that that's quite successful. As you go through these 16 hours, all I want you to do is really, really focus on your product, trying to complete your product, and just make a couple of notes about what you're doing as you go through. So you can have, again, up to one side of A4 of notes of how you've done things and what you've done. You can also get, especially if you work on a computer, you can also get some print screens and a couple of downloads as you go along, just for your final activity, which we'll talk about in a second. So this is an example of what the exam board will ask you to do. So this is the second component 3 for this course that we've done so far. So last year this was the first one, and the exam board gave us 4 different styles, so ambient, Britpop, disco and swing, and then gave us a list of 10 different songs, and you had to choose one and then turn it into one of those styles. So the only thing that you couldn't do was try and do That's How You Start Over by Diana Ross and turn it to disco, because that song is already disco. It is already very similar to disco, so you can't turn a song that's already in that style to that style, if you know what I mean. So a lot of my students last year did Don't Start Now and turned it into disco. And I had a couple of others that did Blue Monday into disco as well, but disco was the popular one last year. But that's just an example of what they could ask you to do. And this is what we did with our mock a little bit. We spent a little bit of time turning one of those songs into one of those styles. Obviously, those will all change this year. And here are your grading criteria, which I will make sure I get printed out for you before you start, and you'll have it in front of you so you can look through. But you've got a different criteria to whether you are deciding to perform or produce. So performance is obviously using instruments and actually live performing at the end, and I'll video record it, or you can literally produce it all using Soundtrap or BandLab, whichever one you prefer. With performance, you can produce your backing track and then perform over the backing track that you've created, which is always a really good idea. It'd be lovely to have some of you performing. And then activity 3 is your final evaluation. And this again is under exam conditions just for 1 hour. You can take in your A4 notes that you've produced during your activity 2. And it's basically you write up what you have done, what's worked well, how it meets the brief. Yes, and then you can add in your print screens and any evidence that you've got as well. So you can have up to, I think it's up to 6 different print screens of like your, if you've done it on Soundtrap, you can have 6 different print screens of that, or you can have 6 photos of you performing or practicing. So yeah, I think that's quite self-explanatory. This is an example here from last year. So they're talking about how they did it, but they're really talking about the musical elements and how they've used the musical elements to produce their piece. So we need to really think about how we talk about the elements and also the compositional and sonic features that we've done all the way throughout component 1 and component 2, and how we can talk about those in our final evaluation. Again, this is in your folder so you can read through this properly. I don't want to sit here and read it for you, but you can just see how it's laid out. And then here is your grading criteria. Again, it's out of 8 marks for that final evaluation. And again, you can see the difference. So you've got limited or basic, adequate, competent, and thorough. So you can all achieve, I know you can all achieve 7 to 8 marks for both this activity 1 and activity 3. And it's all about how you explain what you did during the creative process. Okay, so hope that helps. Hope that clears up any worries or issues with component 3, but please feel free to come and speak to me about it. What I need from you is you to use your time really, really wisely. Use every single hour that you have really, really well, which I know you can and I know you will. I will make sure that I am checking your attendance so that I know how many hours each of you have had, so that if we haven't got your 23 hours in at the end, we'll make sure that you do. Please use all the resources that I'll give you. So I'll give you a checklist of what you can work through as you go through. I'll give you grading criteria. I'll give you the high mark responses from last year. Might be able to download some tracks for you. So please make sure you use anything that I give to you. You are technically not allowed to do any work at home. It has to be under these 23 hours, but you can practice at home if you feel that you need to. Obviously, attend your instrumental lessons every week, because that will help you to work towards finishing your product and help you to develop skills as well. And also, Wednesday and Friday lunchtimes is your time to come into the music room and spend some extra time doing your component 3 or asking me questions about component 3, just generally getting any help and advice, please come along on Wednesday and Friday. But yeah, that's it. Like I said, please come and speak to me if you've got any questions about anything. Thank you.